Which AFC South quarterback needs to be going much higher in FFPC drafts? What did one NFC North receiver discover recently about his hamstrings? And is one AFC North receiver on the cusp of an unreported breakout? Plus, 2023 18-time FFPC Dynasty champion Jim Tracy joins us to talk about Caleb Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Welcome in. Thank you to Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs enjoying the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. It is the latest episode of the HSFF Hour. It's presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship over at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. I am your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, one Ferrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, Ferrell and I are going to discuss Devon Achane, Caleb Williams, and much more before 18-time FFPC Dynasty champion Jim Tracy hops aboard to debate Tyler Lockett, Ezekiel Elliott, and other players that not only make a difference for Dynasty leagues, but definitely players that are difference makers in redraft Fantasy Pros Championship FFPC best ball leagues this year as well. As a reminder, if you are looking for some action, the 2024 Fantasy Pros Championship is live. This is a $6 million prize pool. It has a $1 million grand prize. So for $350, you can draft for $1 million grand prize, and we have drafts going on tonight. My best friend Bryce is commissioning those, and at the midnight, when we pop off the midnight draft tonight, in about a little less than 2 hours, I'll be commissioning that one. So if you want to draft for $1 million tonight, I'll be commissioning that draft. Feel free to pop in and see what you can do, and maybe make 2024 a year to remember. The FFPC Best Ball and Superflex tournaments are live. The Superflex Best Ball tournament, the Classic FFPC Best Ball tournament. If you want to join the Classic tournament, it's a $125 entry fee. You can win a $300,000 grand prize. That's up $100,000 from last year. And of course, the Superflex Best Ball tournament, that was $35 last year to win 50 grand. It's a little bit different this year. $35 to enter. You can win $100,000. Now, you think about that. $35 may not be a lot of money to a lot of people, and maybe it's not a lot of money to you. Maybe it is a lot of money to you, but when you think about turning $35 into $100,000, that is a difference maker. So make sure you're registering for those over at myffpc.com. Check out the Empire Leagues. I know Dizzle talked about this the other day. We've already filled, I want to say, about 5 dozen of the Empire Leagues. And you say, Bulky, what's an Empire League? Well, an Empire League is basically an FFPC Dynasty League on steroids. It's a progressive prize pool. Basically, a half of the pot every single year is set aside to the Empire pot. And whoever wins that Empire League the first time, 2 years in a row, will get that entire Empire pot. They're going to get that entire first place pot that year. The league disbands, and everybody gets their entry fees, or their deposits back, not their entry fees, their deposits back, and then they're free to join another Empire League. That's over at myffpc.com. And if you want to play the classic Dynasty Leagues, myffpc.com has Dynasty League starting at $100, going all the way up to $5,000. As a reminder, no Dynasty League has ever folded in the history of the Fantasy Football Players Championship. So when you're playing Dynasty with the FFPC, you're going to be getting in a good league, a lot of good owners, and you're going to have a lot of fun. myffpc.com is where to go for that. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified every time we go live tonight. Checking into the chat room tonight in YouTube, John Terry, our good buddy John Terry, who has won like I don't know. He might be an FFPC millionaire at this point. I don't even know. He says he loves the hat. I'm wearing the bulky hat tonight. There you can see it right there. This is something. I got the I am bulky. If I rotate it the right way, I got the I am bulky going on tonight. Hashtag I am bulky, which I never got trending on X, which is fine. I probably it's never going to happen anyway. And then Permar99. I love the way you wear the hat. I just wear it normally. It's a flat brim hat. And I wear it like the kids wear it. You know, my kids are getting up to preteens, so they tell me what's cool and what's not. I'm just doing it the way I like it, the way I feel comfortable with it. So that's what I'm doing tonight. A guy I have never in the history of knowing him, which goes almost 30 years deep, that has never worn a hat. I've never seen him wear a hat. I don't even know if he would want to wear a hat. But he is one of my best friends. He is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. You follow him on the X and Instagram at jferrellelliott. Of course, check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. And oh, by the way, there is a slow draft that's about ready to pop off in the KFFSC, which I am joining, so you can compete against the Balkman in the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. Don't forget a $25,000 grand prize. And listen, I'm one of the weak links in this league, so if you want to win, this would be a good time to join. He's here to tell us all about it tonight, the kickoff of the the KFFSC main event. One J. Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, welcome in tonight, man. So glad to have you aboard tonight. How's it going? How are you? I should ask you this. Louisville, what do you do on Memorial Day weekend to kick back and relax?
Well, I watch football, Bob. I watch football from Canada, and I watch football from the UFL. And you know what? Saturday night I might get out and have a drink with some friends. But you know, Balky, I pretty much do the same thing every day. And you know what? Look, we're 91 days away from KFFSC in Louisville, and 86 from Cincinnati, and you know, I've got some players that are checking in with me and saying, you know, I haven't heard from you in a while, you know, and so it's very exciting. So, yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. Buddy, we got to sell these hats. I think anyone, you know, anyone that of the listeners that would join our KFFSC kickoff classic in the slow draft, if they can score more points than you, I'll buy them one of those hats.
Yeah, we got it. You're right. I mean, I have heard this from many, a fan, many an FFPC, many a KFFSC competitor. I've seen this hat before, Balky. I want to buy one. Where can I get it? I have this one specially made. But my promise to you is I will mass produce these if people want to buy them, and you can definitely get them. Maybe we'll give them out at Louisville this year. Maybe we'll give them out in Las Vegas. But yeah,
I think you missed the part of selling, Balky. I think you should sell the hats. I said nothing about giving them out.
Okay, we won't give them away.
You know, you should sell these hats. I mean, you know, that's $30 ball cap, $50 if it's signed.
Right.
And if we get a little gold in there to go, you know, stints, yeah, there's all kinds of potential with that hat.
Yeah, Joe King is already chiming in on the YouTube, like, start a fashion line, Balky. Yeah, we can get the T-shirts going. We can get the hats going. We'll get some wristbands, like everything. Like we'll figure it out as we move forward through the 2024 season. Bulky boxer briefs has a ring to it. Joe, I'm going to be honest with you. Of all the things that I could sell with the Balky name on it, boxer briefs are probably not in the top 10.
But it's so interesting of how you position the beard on the boxer brief.
Yeah.
And that, you know, there's worlds of possibilities there. So
yeah, there's worlds of possibilities.
Onto something.
Well, listen, I think that you have to get your mind out of the gutter, at least the way I'm thinking about it right now.
I'm thinking comfort, Balky, is all.
Okay. All right. Well, then
what are you talking about?
If it's comfort, then I'm with you. If it's comfort, then I'm with
comfort,
you.
buddy.
Yes, exactly. Corey Walters chiming in on the YouTube chat too. Just curious in Triflex, who scores the most overall? Quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, or the tight ends in a 1.5 point tight end premium? I'll be honest with you, Corey. I don't know if anybody's ever crunched those numbers. But I would check out, I would check out RotoViz. I would check out Football Guys. I would check out Fantasy Pros. I would check out Player Profiler, because a lot of those websites, if there is data out there on this, those would be the 4 ones I would most guess that would have that information, but I simply don't have it off the top of my head of which one of those positions score the most. All right. Iron Daddy is chiming in also on the YouTube chat tonight. Hey guys, love what you do. Just a question. When is your next live draft? And will you be doing a main event draft in the future? This is a great question. And I can tell you this, as far as the FFPC goes, we will be having the hard way draft live this coming Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time on these here YouTube channels. Now, what's exciting about this, and I can't 100% confirm it yet, but I'm like 99% it's going to happen, so I'll promote it. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Show normally airs from 7 to 9 Eastern time on Thursday nights. What we're going to do this coming Thursday, we're going to go an hour earlier, 2 full hours of pregame. And we're going to have on, my plan is right now to have on some of these hard way players that participate. I'm talking about Noah Bloom. I'm talking about a B-Bag Batoba. I'm talking about Dan Williamson, all these guys. Though they're not confirmed yet, but these are the people I'm reaching out to, and maybe we can get them on. We're going to get Aiden LaCourie on. We're going to get Dave Terpoli on to pregame this draft coming up on Thursday night. That will be the next live draft we have. Ferrell, I think what we need to do and figure out is getting on some at least one KFFSC draft on this FFPC channel. I think that'd be a lot of fun to cover that live as well. And main event drafts will happen, Iron Daddy, but they probably won't happen until August. So if you're looking for live draft coverage, we will have it here with the FFPC and hopefully the KFFSC as we get longer and deeper into the summer here. Ferrell, as much as people love to hear us gas bag for an hour on Friday nights, the live draft coverage, man, that's what it's all about, right?
Well, and we do a little gas bagging about that too. Right. The live draft coverage takes preparation and length. There's just a lot of things that I'm not good at to get that done, but it's fantastic. It's fantastic for the players, and everyone likes to. Everyone loves it. Yeah.
Everyone loves it, indeed. And everyone loves, well, I'll tell you this. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Show, in case you missed it last night on the Better Sports Network and the FFPC and BSN socials, we had on Brandon Murchison from Rotowaller, and it was a weird start to the show because we had, I think, 3 pieces of quarterback news to lead off, which I don't normally typically do that on this program. I want to concentrate on tight ends. I want to concentrate on receivers and running backs. But it's going to be weird again tonight, Ferrell, because we're going to lead off with a piece of quarterback news, and that's Anthony Richardson. According to a piece in the New York Times, Richardson says he is not going to change the way he plays in 2024 and going forward. He said his shoulder injury that happened last year that knocked him out for the season was unlucky. Shane Steichen, who is the head coach of Indianapolis, said that Richardson so far during OTAs has been, quote, pretty smooth. He's been throwing the ball more than 60 yards after his rehab of his surgically repaired AC joint injury that basically knocked him out for the season, 3/4 of the season probably. He had 23 rushes over 3 full games before going down in week 5 last year against the Texans. He had 4 rushing touchdowns last year. Ferrell, I'm going to bring this up right now. Anthony Richardson, quarterback 6 in the Fantasy Pros Championship ADP, according to FantasyMojo.com, at FantasyMojo on the X. That's Darren Armani, the godfather of the FFPC Pros vs. Joes competition. If you're playing in the FFPC, I highly recommend you get a subscription to FantasyMojo.com. Over the last 5 days in the Fantasy Pros Championship, Richardson, quarterback 6 at the 701. And I will portend here tonight that Richardson is not going high enough. I think that if you want to win your league this year, letting Richardson slip to the 7th round is a mistake. You got to draft him higher. How do you feel about him?
Who are you putting him in front of?
Right now, Stroud, Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, Hurts, and Allen are the quarterbacks going in front of him right now. Now, if you want to talk about who am I putting in front of him, I would not necessarily put any quarterbacks in front of him, but I would be drafting him ahead of Ramondre Stevenson. I would be drafting him ahead of Ridley. I would be drafting him ahead of Zamir White.
I see. You're going to spend that 7th round pick on him, and that's going to be your number 1.
No, that's the thing. I'm not letting him slip to the 7th. I'm drafting him in the 6th round at this point, and maybe higher. I think he's going too low right now.
Okay, well, you're a believer in what you saw, and so am I. I loved watching him play. You got to think back to early in the season. He threw 37 passes against Jacksonville and still ran the ball 10 times. And he picks up yardage when he runs. He scored touchdowns when he runs. His only real bad statistical game was against Tennessee Titans. And, playing against those guys, they turned back football to the 1960s. So you got to throw that out. You're betting on a limited sample pool, but you're betting on a pool of talent that has been distributed to you over many formats, including what the scouts feel about him. I say go for it if you believe in it, Balky.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing. I mean, at this point, listen, I've never been a huge guy of my fantasy teams where I want to draft a quarterback super early, but I will be willing to make an exception this year. If you look back at what Anthony Richardson was on pace for last year, it would have been historic as far as a rookie quarterback season goes. And I understand the aspect of, okay, well, he says he's not changing his playing style. No. He says he's going to do the same thing that he was doing last year that got him hurt, and that could happen again. However, he views it as unlucky. And, quite frankly, looking at that injury, it may have been unlucky. The one thing I will say here is Richardson is not a Jaden Daniels 185, 190-pound quarterback frame. He is a built, rocked up quarterback. If anybody is built to play the quarterback position the way he does, it's Richardson. You can easily get another quarterback later on, whether it be Purdy, whether it be Caleb Williams. You can get these guys like 3-4 rounds after that. If you're that focused on Richardson, get a backup as the 13th or 14th quarterback off the board, and you'll be fine. So I am fine drafting Anthony Richardson in the 6th round. Let's do this right here. John Terry chiming in on the YouTube chat. How about Lamar Jackson? 2 years ago, he weighed 225 pounds. Last year, he was 215, and now he is 205 pounds. He says this is all about improving his agility. I just read off the ADP of all these quarterbacks, Ferrell. Quarterback 4 is where Lamar Jackson is going right now. That is in the mid-6th round. This is another guy that I think I like this year. I know, the weight loss and the weight gain, usually we don't hear positive results in year 1. I don't necessarily think I'm bumping him up because of the weight loss, but I do like the fact that he is getting Derrick Henry this year. I do like the fact that Rashad Bateman is getting steamed up a little bit, and I do like the fact that Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, those guys are back again this year. I'm on board with Lamar Jackson in the mid-6th round as well.
You don't leave out Isaiah Likely. I think you hit it right on the nail head. This backfield has the potential to do things that we haven't seen before, and they're a defensive coordinator's nightmares, how you scheme for this, what it can look like, and then what it can become. And what I have noticed in the last few years, the time I've spent around NFL players, at every position, lean is the key. And muscle mass and muscle weight and shedding unwanted intake of food and calories and just the athletes now have so much more knowledge about nutrition. And I think that's why they're seeing their bodies change. They immediately get return on how their body feels because of what they're put into it. So it's just not weight loss, but it's a whole factor of things and lifestyle changes of athletes. In the postseason, or in the off season rather, you used to see, players would hit the bar and hit the vacation spots, blow off a little steam. And I'm sure that still happens plenty, but it certainly is not like as I remember it. Nobody's contesting to see how much they can put away in the bar. Everybody's contesting about how quickly they can get up and get ready for next year. And that's the culture that runs through most football teams. So I think Lamar Jackson is setting the pace for that culture there in Baltimore.
It's crazy because, my father-in-law still sends me pictures on Facebook once a week or twice a week of Vince Lombardi and Paul Hornung and Bart Starr holding a beer and smoking a cigarette in the locker room after it's just crazy. You never see that.
Lenny Dawson and the Fresca.
That's
a cigarette and a Fresca.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did you ever have a Fresca, Balky, or was that product off the market?
No, I literally have Fresca in my house right now. I had one 2 or 3 days ago. It is refreshing. I love it. Yeah.
That's the secret behind the beard, isn't it?
It's not. I won't go that far. But it is a grapefruit soda that is great with vodka, without vodka. I love it both ways. I am a big fan of Fresca for sure. The other thing I'll bring up too, and this is wild, but the radio show I do in Northeast Wisconsin, my co-host for that, he has talked about, because we're living in Appleton, which is about a couple of Jordan Love Hail Marys southwest of Green Bay. And Packers would hang out in Appleton. In fact, for the longest time, and this may still be the case, when visiting teams come to play the Packers, they stay in a hotel in downtown Appleton, and then they bus up for the Green Bay game. But he would tell me these stories of, these Packers hanging out and just getting sauced. At I could tell you stories, and I won't tell them on air now, but with Brett Favre and Mark Chmura and Adam Timmerman, a lot of the legends from the 90s Packers. And then if you go back to the Glory Days Packers, Bart Starr, Max McGee, Paul Hornung, stuff like that, that happened in Appleton. There is so much, and it's crazy the way that, even like I said, to the Packers in the 90s, those great Green Bay teams, of how they treated their body and what they put into it. It's totally different than what we see now, which is, and
it's totally different than what it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my point. Yeah. We have Jim Tracy, the 18-time FFPC Dynasty champ, hanging out in the chat, ready to come aboard. The last thing I'll bring up, and speaking of the Packers, I'll bring this up, Ferrell, because I want to get your thoughts on this. Christian Watson had some testing done this offseason where he went down to UW-Madison, which is roughly a 2-hour drive from Green Bay down to the state capitol here in Wisconsin. And the NFL awarded the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health roughly a $4 million grant to study some of the elite athletes in the NFL, not just with the Packers, but the NFL, to try to figure out what's going on with these soft tissue injuries, hamstrings, quads, everything going on, calf strains and everything, to make sure that these guys stay healthy. So according to what they found, Matt LaFleur said that a couple of months ago in March, Watson, who missed half the season basically last year, was discovered to have a 20% strength difference between his right and his left leg. In other words, he was putting a lot of strain on one leg because it had to compensate for the lack of strength in the other leg. Now, 20% is a massive difference between the strength in one leg to another. 0% difference is basically impossible. I would be willing to wager that Usain Bolt doesn't have a 0% difference in the strength of his legs. Watson says he wants to get it down to about 6%. Since this was found out in March, he's already down between that 8 to 10% range, so he's not far off from that right now. At OTAs in Green Bay this past week, a lot of the beat writers were raving about how good Christian Watson looked coming out of his breaks, his burst down the field. Again, it's shorts, what can you tell? But there are certain things that they noticed this year that they did not notice last year. 30% of his targets in 2023 came from more than 20 yards downfield. Christian Watson right now, Ferrell, as we look at the Fantasy Pros Mojo on this guy, is going as the wide receiver. Wide receiver 43. At the 8-12 right now. So he has crept up, because earlier this week he was a mid-9th round pick. Now he's a late 8th round pick. I know this is off season. I know it's kind of fluff, but I do think there is some significant knowledge here if you're drafting Watson. How do you feel knowing this about Watson now and the fact that you can still get him in the late 8th round?
Well, yeah, his draft position right now does not touch. It's nowhere near. This is a 3rd round draft pick talent. So if you can get him there, get him. I didn't really know what to do with this information. You summed it up beautifully, Balky. Asymmetrical stride. What does that mean? I looked up some synonyms for asymmetrical. Yes. I came awry. That's one, and I started looking at some of the things, and it very much sounds like me. Awry. That's what happens to my plans every morning. They immediately go away. Crooked, first business partner. Perfect description. Disproportional. That's what I would like to do with my CFL, NFL client base. Right now, it's a little disproportional. Gibbous, which also means protrudes or buckles. That might have bulges. That might have something to do with you, Balky. I don't know. Lacking correspondence. Now, this is how you lose your young girlfriends. Bobcat just won't even text me back anymore. Lacking correspondence. So my point is that I feel an affinity with this player. I didn't know that that he and I were suffering from the same situations here, but I feel affinity for him. I'm drafting him everywhere. I'm taking him everywhere I can get him. And for the agent in me wants to go do a deal right away with Stride Ride. Hi, I'm Christian Watson, and Stride Ride's the shoe for your kid. I just said this is the best question we've ever had on the show.
I'm excited to see what Watson does this year. I do think that while Jaden Reed, there's no reason to think that he is going to have a letdown in 2024. My belief is that he was punching a little bit above his weight in 2023, and I think Watson takes some of that away from Reed. Again, not anything to fault Jaden Reed, but I do think that Watson is a little bit of a nice buy right now at the end of the 8th round. Now, once he creeps up into the 6th or 7th, then we can have a conversation. But right now, I think he is a nice buy.
I think he's got third-round talent. Take us through, Balky, the wide receivers on Green Bay as you would rate them.
Yeah, I would rank them as at this point. Now, if we throw draft capital out the window, right? I would say Reed. I would say Watson. If you include draft capital, then I like Watson's value better than Reed. But I think Reed then Watson. I'm going to say Dontavian Wicks over Romeo Dobbs at this point. You could throw in Musgrave and nobody's talking about this too. And I'll bring this up on this show. Tucker Kraft, the guy who stepped in for Luke Musgrave last year, when Musgrave went down, and I wouldn't say he was a world beater, but you're looking at like 5 for 60 or 4 for 40 and the occasional touchdown for Tucker Kraft, which is really good in tight end premium scoring. This dude, along with the Packers starting right tackle Zach Tom, both tore their pectoral muscles lifting weights at Lambeau Field this past offseason. The plan is that they will be ready at some point during training camp, but we know about plans, Ferrell. The best laid plans oftentimes do not meet our expectations. So I would put that out there for anybody who's thinking about Tucker Kraft at this point, because I'm really liking Luke Musgrave for sure. We have been gas bagging way too long. We have kept our guest in the green room way past when he should have been out there. The shrimp is gone. The crudité is all gone. We hope he enjoyed it. Let's bring him on right now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a guy in 2023 alone won 18 FFPC Dynasty Leagues. He's been playing in a lot of the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball tournaments this year, and he's on the hunt for a big-time grand prize, maybe multiple big-time grand prizes in 2024. Please welcome onto the program to talk about Xavier Worthy, TJ Hawkinson, and much more. It is the incomparable Jim Tracy. Jim, welcome aboard tonight. Thank you for hanging out with us. It's a pleasure to have you on. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. I mean, I live in Chicago, and it's a time to be optimistic right now.
Yes, this is good because we got a Caleb Williams question for you coming up, which we'll get into for sure. But I do want to get into that. I want to ask you to lead things off. Maybe I'm reading this wrong, but I don't think I am. 2023, you won 18 FFPC Dynasty Leagues. That's an incredible feat. What do you attribute that to all your success this past season?
I've had a lot of success for a lot of seasons, and I take pride in consistency in my draft strategies, consistency in my beliefs, consistency.
I love that.
And I know it's strange to say consistency leads to consistency, but it does. It's when you're all over the place, right? You'll get a few titles because you'll get them randomly by picking the right guys and having the right season. But when you consistently pick all the right guys, then you can consistently win a lot of leagues.
I love it. And you are you're there in Chicago, you say. Are you coming to us from Capone's vault? It's a little dark there. But God bless the Bears. You gotta love them. I love them. I everything about that team is just fascinating to me this year. I can't wait to the start of the season. And Balky, we get the Bears quicker than we get anybody because they're the Hall of Fame game this year. But let me talk to you about Caleb Williams. What are your expectations? People want to talk about C.J. Stroud. What are your expectations on Caleb? Because I loved everything Stroud did, but at the end of the day last year, it's 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I think if Caleb Williams did that, I might be, as a football fan of the Chicago Bears, happy, and as a fantasy player, a little bit disappointed. Your thoughts on Caleb Williams' fantasy numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. First of all, thank you, Ferrell, for talking dirty to me right away here.
Yeah, she's dirty.
Because talking Chicago Bears is talking dirty to me.
Yeah.
And it's hard to travel the farthest distance you'll ever travel in your life, right? Because the longest distance you'll ever travel is 12 inches from your heart to your brain, right? Yeah. So Caleb Williams, in my heart, is absolutely going to do everything C.J. Stroud did and more. And on my brain, he's absolutely going to do everything C.J. Stroud did and more. 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns would be disappointing to me, not only as a fantasy fan, but as a Bears fan, of course.
Those are big numbers. Who's going to be the beneficiary at receivers? John Terry, who often, with a pirate smile, kind of hijacks the show. He wants to know who's going to be on the receiving end of all these passes. Hey, you don't have Darnell Mooney to kick around anymore, my man. So who's going to be catching these
more? Of course, they've got more talent this year than ever. Everybody loves the Keenan Allen signing. Everybody loves Roma Dunze, but Roma Dunze is going to have to wait a little bit, I think, to really be the lead guy. I think it's a DJ Moore.
Lead guy.
DJ Moore is the guy this year.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We have the YouTube chat filling up with questions right now, but I want to bring on a special guest, ladies and gentlemen. You've known her from a couple of years ago when she popped on this show. It is my daughter. OMG, odds maker the girl. She's gonna pop on. Jim, she's gonna ask you a question right now. Go ahead, honey. You can pop on. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Hey.
All right. Here she is. Fresh off. She was just in your neck of the woods, just north of Chicago a couple hours ago, Jim, and she wants to ask you a question about the Chiefs. Okay, go ahead. Can you read that?
How on board are you with Xavier Worthy in Kansas City?
All right. Did you get that, Jim?
Yep. She was asking how on board I am with Xavier Worthy in Kansas City.
Exactly. All right. Now you can go to bed, sweetheart. All right. Thank you.
Good job.
I'm jealous. The reason this is so dark here is all my family's in bed right now. I'm an old man. I already took my medicine and it's time for bed. So I'm sitting here in the dark in my den. And but Xavier Worthy, let's get back to that.
Yeah.
I'm not real on board with him personally. I'm on board if you think 50 receptions for 700 yards and maybe 5 touchdowns is what you're looking for. Maybe a flex or a wide receiver, 4. But I still think Rice is the guy there. I know he may miss a little time, but I think Rice is the guy there. I think Kelsey's still the guy there. And the team's improving, but he's going to have to wait as well. And he doesn't track the deep ball very well, in my opinion, from the tape I've seen.
And that's his calling card too. So if that's the case where he's not tracking the deep ball well, I mean, this is a significant thing. And if you look at the Fantasy Mojo on Xavier Worthy in the FantasyPros Championship right now, you can see he's wide receiver 37 at the 704, a rookie that went at the end of the first round. That's significant. And if he can't come home with his calling card, this is bad news for anybody who's investing an early 7th round pick. Let's get to some of the YouTube questions here for you, Jim, tonight. I'll bring up Corey Walters first here because I know you participate in a lot of the never too early FFPC best ball leagues. The Fantasy Pros Championship, I don't know if you're in any of those leagues right now, but could you talk a little bit about the difference between a best ball format and a lineup where you have to set your starting lineup each and every Sunday, Jim?
Yeah, for sure. The best ball formats, I'm looking for the upside guys that may not perform consistently week after week, but they have those monster weeks throughout the season and guys that have helped me win. And best ball are guys like Tyler Lockett, right? A lot of guys wouldn't invest him over the years, but he'd have those 4 big games a year with 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, 10 catches. And those are the types of guys that help you really win those best balls. They may not week after week perform for you, but they give you those 200-point weeks throughout the season that give you the win at the end.
The other thing I'll bring up here is, let's see, who do I want to go to next? You talked a little bit about Odunze, and how you're a little bit more, for lack of a better term, bearish on him for 2024. How do you see the catches being divided up? And we could bring in DeAndre Swift in this conversation. We could bring Cole Kmet in this conversation, and obviously Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. I think there's a lot of people wondering if this Bears offense is for real. Who do we need to get as far as the pass catchers go, Jim?
Yeah, I'd mentioned before, I'm DJ Moore first. I'm still Keenan Allen second, and I'm Rome Odunze third. That's me. Now,
with Kmet and Swift, how do they factor into this at all?
Well, Swift, Kmet's going to lose a little bit this year. I mean, he comes on strong at the end of every year, but he's going to lose a little this year because there's that much more talent, especially underneath with Swift there, who's going to catch his 50 balls and do his thing. That's why they brought him on to help when something's not there downfield for Caleb.
Swift right now, I'm going to bring up the ADP on this in the Fantasy Mojo. Swift is going in FantasyPros Championship drafts at this point over the last 5 days. DeAndre Swift is being drafted as running back 19. He is going in the at the 605, so basically the mid-6th round. Ferrell Devon Achane, running back 11 at the 307. Now he has fallen a little bit. A week or so ago, he was going at the end of the second, early third. Now he's a mid-third round pick. This is interesting, right?
Anything with Achane is interesting because he's part of the Speed Demon Dolphins. And so a team that looks greatly different from your Chicago Bears there. My questions to you are how you're handling in redraft all these running backs. So, Balky, you're right. Why don't we start there? Achane, competition within his own elite running back room. Is this player worth his 3rd round draft value right now? Is this as high as he's going to go? What happens to Mostert? What's happening there with the rookie back that they've had? What's going on?
I guess you're asking me that.
Yeah.
Bulky. I already know what Bulky thinks.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
This is all
no
in
problem.
you, Jim.
Can I call him Bulky too?
Yeah,
He's got it on the
absolutely.
hat. It's on the
All
hat.
right, good. I like Achane in the 3rd. I didn't like him in the 2nd. I saw the same trend as you were. He was at the end of the 2nd. There's too many guys I like there. But that mid-3rd, if depending on the draft I'm in, depending on if it's tight end premium or whatever's going on, I like him in the middle of 3rd because he does have that upside. And if he can stay upright this year, he's going to have a big year. And I'm not talking about a 1,000-yard rushing season. I'm talking about 850 yards rushing, but 450 yards receiving and a total of 12 touchdowns, which is going to make him worth that.
That'll do it. So where does Mostert fall in this group? Mostert's going around the 9th round.
I'll bring it up right now. Raheem Mostert, running back 28 at the 804. So he's basically going 5 rounds after Achane.
They'll beat you to death. They'll beat you to death in the hallway at the Planet Hollywood, telling you that Mostert, reminding you that he scored 18 touchdowns.
21, including receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, they'll beat you to death, man. So what are you going to do with Mostert?
I'm the same place. I mean, maybe a little earlier. I like him around running back 24, 25, but it's the same thing like David Montgomery in Detroit. He had a really solid year last year, but he's fading a little bit too. And people like that shiny new toy that brings that upside that could win championships. So Mostert doesn't, he did it last year, but he doesn't carry that in. What is he, 32 this year now?
Yeah.
I don't think it matters with this guy. I've determined that he's ageless. I don't think it matters. I think
I think you can only push it so far.
Matter of fact, if I was Mostert, I would request the jersey of my age each year.
Each year.
I think that nobody's ever done it, and he would be a good guy to do it this year for sure. Go back to the YouTube chat right now. Corey Walters points out that Chris Godwin is supposedly going back to the slot this year, which should mean higher fantasy points. Permar99 says Godwin back in the slot is a gold pick in the 5th or the 6th round. And Bill Hollywood saying, I'd like to know what Jim thinks about Chris Godwin this year. Chris Godwin, wide receiver 36 at the end of the 6th round. He is going after Jaden Reed, Marquise Brown, and Calvin Ridley. He is going ahead of Xavier Worthy, Deontay Johnson, and Ladd McConkey. Jim, I'll just pose it to you. At that ADP, wide receiver 36 at the end of the 6th round, how do you feel about Chris Godwin for 2024?
I love him. Same thing. Going back to the slot where he averages 9 receptions. Not 9 receptions, 9 targets a game in his career. I love it, and I think I'm very bullish on him, and I have him on a lot of teams. And
Balky, could you quickly? I don't know where you get it, but pull up how many times he lined up in the slot last year.
Ooh,
I don't necessarily, I don't necessarily remember him too many times out of the slot, and when he wasn't, he ran a crossing pattern. But I would have to go. I would have to fall in with you guys on Godwin. But let me ask you this: you take Canales out of that offense. He's moved on now to coach at Carolina. Baker Mayfield looked to thrive with him in the building last year. Does Baker Mayfield continue to be the new Baker Mayfield, or does he regress into what we've seen in previous years?
I think he's the same Baker Mayfield as last year. I know that you're high on the coaching, the old coaching, but I'm just as high this year on him. I don't think he regresses at all. Just because he got paid. I know that he got paid once before, and people all thought that maybe he wasn't. He was too focused on commercials, but I still like the guy this year.
Boy, those were some bad commercials, weren't they? I think, I would never buy that insurance. I mean, to tell you the truth, after this season.
Corey Walters in the YouTube chat also chiming in, Jim. He wants to know, and I don't know if you know this or not, but maybe you could make a guesstimate. Who is your most owned player in all your dynasty leagues, in your never too early best ball tournament drafts? Do you know who your most owned player is? Quite frankly, I don't know who it is, but maybe you do.
I actually do know the answer to this question. Caleb Williams is my most owned player.
There you go, baby.
And it wasn't even because I was a Chicago guy. It's just that I had the right draft picks in the right drafts, and I did take them a lot in the end of the 1st round, even in non-super flex dynasty rookie drafts. I'm really high on him.
Well, Jim, you talk about consistency, so that's what I like about that. That's what I like about that room. I see a lot of talent in the room, in the draft room, the war room, whatever you wish to call it, over at Chicago. And all those guys showed up in a suit and tie, which is another thing. just for appearances. Now, in appearances in Seattle, in best ball, it's an easy choice for me. Tyler Lockett, Metcalf, if they're there anywhere near ADP, I want them. I get them. I want to get both of them. In redraft for main event, FFPC, it's sometimes a little tricky for me. Your thoughts on particularly Lockett, because you mentioned him earlier in the show, and then what would you like to tell us about Metcalf?
I'm only high on Lockett in those best ball scenarios. That's where I really like Lockett, because you can get him later, and he's going to give you those 3 or 4 great games.
He disappears sometimes.
Yeah, Metcalf. I'm still pretty high on Metcalf. Obviously, way higher than the rest of the room in redraft leagues, right? In non-redraft dynasty type leagues, now I'm on JSN.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what do you like particularly about JSN? I thought he had a stellar year last year. I like the way he plays. What do you like about him now with Geno Smith continuing at quarterback?
I like that he's got another year under his belt. We know these receivers get better after the rookie years. It's pretty rare that we have great rookie receiver years like we're expecting from Harrison and maybe Neighbors this year. I even talked about it, with Xavier Worthy. I'm looking at maybe 50 catches. Rome Odunze, I might be looking at 45 to 50 catches.
Yeah.
That's where I'm looking at him. But JSN, they having that year under his belt, experience learning from some great receivers. He's going to do nothing but get better, and they're going to give more opportunities this year.
But a week ago today, Jim, we got an update from NFL.com about TJ Hawkinson. Now, apparently, Hawkinson says he's doing really good right now, coming off this torn ACL, this torn MCL that he suffered last year, which is good. However, the Vikings, despite already having Hawkinson, Josh Oliver, and Johnny Munt, they went out and signed Robert Tonyan this week as well. Hawkinson said that he and the Vikings are taking his injury, quote, day by day and week by week, and that there's a lot of variables that go into recovery from this injury. Perhaps the most damning part of this piece on NFL.com was that Hawkinson said he hasn't, quote, really put a timeline on his return. Your thoughts on Hawkinson? Now, right now, I'll put this out there. As far as where he is going in the FantasyPros Championship over the last 5 days, he is still being drafted as tight end 12, and he is going off the board in the early 8th round, slightly behind Brock Bowers, slightly ahead of Dallas Goedert. Do you think he's ready by week 1? Or if he's not ready by week 1, when do you think we can start as fantasy players? When do you think we can start putting him in our lineups on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, obviously it's all speculation right now because none of us knows really where that injury is, and they don't want to tell us either, just this day-to-day stuff they're talking about. But I believe he probably starts the season on the PUP list. I believe it's not till week 6 that we're looking at, Hawkinson really being in the swing of things. And even if some miracle he stays off it, I think they take it really slow the first 4, 5, 6 games of this season. And he could be a league winner at the end, but you're going to need something to get you through to the middle of the season.
You can't ask this question to anybody in Dallas. I mean, if you ask Jerry Jones, he'd talk about something else for an hour. If you asked Roger Staubach, he'd tell you Walt Garrison. If you asked Emmitt Smith, he'd start talking comeback. So I'm just going to ask you to give us an answer. Everybody wants to know. Permar already knows, doesn't even know what the damn question is. Already knows the answer. But you, Jim, we want to hear the answer from you. Who's the running back to own in any format of fantasy on the Dallas Cowboys this year?
I have to choose one?
Yes, sir. There's no wiggling off the hook. You can't be like those other guys. Or you could say Emmitt Smith could come out of it.
This is like trying to pick your favorite redheaded stepchild here or something.
Yeah.
Zeke is the one to own for me. The nostalgia, the coming back, they're going to give him a huge applause, and they're going to have to feed him the ball early. I don't know that he makes it through the season, but if I had to take one, if I had to pick guns to my head, I'm going to take Zeke. As much as I'd like to believe in Dowdle. And
for those of us drafting in January that took Zeke in the 20th round or the 20th, how smart or how proud are we of ourselves?
Right?
Yeah. If you were asked that question of my erstwhile associate host, Dave Turp, he would tell you Pollard and then have a nervous twitch. He's got a little twitch every time he says Pollard. Have you noticed that, Balky? He says, yeah, he's still talking about Pollard there. Okay. Is there anyone else in that running back room that you see having occasional value? And do you think that maybe, because you follow football, you know the deal, do you think that maybe their running back is not on the team yet? Their next running back, their complimentary running back.
I think that I'd lean towards that. I'd lean towards the idea that somebody is going to be dropped. Somebody's going to be available. Somebody might be traded, possibly. Yeah. But I still believe that probably the guy you want to own at the end of the season is probably not even on the team yet.
Well, Jim, let me ask you this, because I know that I've heard stuff about Khalil Herbert not making the Bears this year. And if that's the case, then the Cowboys could pick him up. What do you know about Herbert in Chicago this year?
Yeah, I'm hearing similar thoughts that maybe he could get dropped or maybe traded even, maybe somebody to actually give a seventh round pick or something for him or conditional pick.
Yeah.
I think Herbert would be an upgrade in the entire Dallas running room if that's where he ended up. But I'm hearing the same things.
Hey, Jim, I got a little test for you real quick. Balky, can we do the test? Do we have time?
Fire away.
I got a little, because, and these are quick answers, right or wrong, big deal. But you being a dynasty guy, age of players is important. And so I just want to talk about chronological age, not football age. Zeke's got a lot of mileage on him. We know that. Who's younger, Curtis Samuel or Josh Allen?
Curtis
Well,
Samuel.
come on, let's go.
Curtis Samuel.
Yes, correct. Who's younger, Zeke or Calvin Ridley?
Elliott.
Zeke.
There you go. We're on a roll.
This is
Who's
crazy.
younger, Pitts or Penix? Both Falcons.
Pitts is younger.
Very good. Cooks. Here's an old guy. Who's younger, Cooks or Prescott?
Prescott.
That's the only one you missed.
Cooks is younger than Prescott?
Yeah. So
wow.
But when you begin to think about that, and you begin to look at those ages and not what you've preconceived, it's a little surprising sometimes.
I got one for you. Who's younger, Aaron Rodgers or Breece Hall? You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. But Aaron Rodgers, in a couple of interviews, has intimated that he actually is younger than Breece Hall.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at there. I'll leave it there right now.
Especially when he's in the dark.
Yeah, it's in the dark. That's where he discovered his true age, his real life age. Let's go to a couple of emails here for you, Jim. Andy in Columbus, Ohio. Is Tyler Conklin a sleeper tight end? Oh, this is a New York Jets question. Is Tyler Conklin a sleeper tight end this year in New York? How do you feel about Conklin? Which, by the way, in the Fantasy Pros ADP right now, Tyler Conklin is going off as tight end 19 in the 12th round, Jim.
I took Conklin every chance I had in every rookie draft where he was sitting out there in like the 5th round. I probably have him on 3 less teams than I have Caleb Williams on. I mean, I'm high on Conklin. They did nothing to improve that room. We all know Aaron Rodgers loves the tight end, especially when he gets in the red zone. And we know that Aaron Rodgers is making the decisions and running this offense. So I think Conklin is going to be a real steal there.
He is a real steal. What about moving on to Mike in Henrietta, Texas question? What kind of an impact is Jaden Daniels going to have for the Commanders this season? Thanks, man. That is Mike in Henrietta, Texas. Mike in Henrietta, Texas. We thank you for the email. What about Jaden Daniels, Jim?
Believe it or not, I have him as quarterback 10 this year.
Wow.
I am high on Daniels. Now, again, heard you talking earlier on your show about his weight and his size. Obviously, it's a huge concern. He gets injured, it's over. He's not Anthony Richardson. But, man, if he stays upright, he's going to score a lot of fantasy points. He's going to have 700 rushing yards with 5 or 6 touchdowns there. He's going to have another 20 passing touchdowns, maybe 3,500 yards. You're talking about probably more fantasy points than Stroud last year.
Hey, so let me ask you something real quick. Veteran quarterbacks, do you see one improving over his performance last year? Not coming back into line, not like a Baker Mayfield guy, but a guy really topping his performance and ended up in your top 10? Because you got some young quarterbacks in that top 10.
I would say Stafford is probably the older guy that's going to bounce back this year. Okay. He's gonna have a fresh season. He's going to start with everybody healthy. We hope. Cooper Kupp and everybody. He's got a lot of weapons there.
But not a top 10 guy, right? Not a top 10 guy. No. I don't know if I have an older guy that I've moved into my top 10. Right. The older guys that are already there, are Josh Allen and the rest of the crew. Permar's trying to get your attention. Just don't pay attention.
Well, he says Jaden Daniels is better than Caleb Williams in all phases, but he did say Caleb Williams does have better fingernail polish. So the
Yeah,
fingernail
that's
polish
important in
from Caleb
fantasy.
Williams, yeah, that's what we have to learn from that. Jim, let's do one final question, and this goes back to Corey in the YouTube chat was asking about this question. I'm going to let Ferrell lay it out here for you because this is where we all learn something for sure, and maybe two things for sure on this question.
You're positive. You are intriguing guest. You are a gentleman that knows football, but who are you fading? Who do you don't want any part of? Who will other people be drafting that you will look down at the floor and shake your head? Call them names.
I think there's quite a few people that
Well, give me the best one.
My best one that I'm fading would probably be, I mean, nothing great. You know, I don't have any shares of Ramondre Stevenson. I don't have, you know, I mean, probably people that other people are fading. I can't think of anybody at the moment.
Is there a bear you're fading? Is there a bear that deserves fading?
Well, in redraft leagues, I'm fading Roma Dunze. I mean, he's not the guy I want. I'm letting other people take him, you know, way ahead of where I think he needs to go. So that would be the one on the Bears.
I was expecting you to say Velus Jones, but that So we already know that you love Caleb Williams. Who's somebody else that you're fantastically high on, but you have not shared with us tonight?
I would say Dalton Kincaid. I mean, if you're talking about across the league, middle of that third round, I can't say no. And if I do say no and he's still there in the fourth, then I definitely can't say no. But
the eloquent John Terry just pointed out that at Dallas Cowboys, that the best thing to do is invest in their passing game. Let me ask you a question. Tight end Ferguson, who I was very impressed with last year down in Dallas, how would you compare him to Kincaid?
I have Kincaid far ahead of him personally. You know, just because of the opportunity cost, meaning there's less targets available in Dallas than there are available in Buffalo right now.
This is
you know, talent-wise, he may have similar talent, but he's not going to get the same amount of love as Kincaid is in Buffalo this year.
Which honestly makes perfect sense as well. I think that the stuff we've learned from you tonight, Jim, from a dynasty standpoint, from a redraft standpoint, has all made us better fantasy football players, no question. I want to congratulate you personally on a massively successful 2023 and wish you nothing but the best of luck in not only winning your dynasty leagues in 2024, the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, and all the leagues you're playing in the FFPC in 2024.
I got one more question for Jim.
Go ahead, Ferrell. Yeah.
Jim T., what time do you get up in the morning? Do you go to bed? It's so early. What time do you get up?
5 o'clock every day.
Okay, so you're up at 5 a.m. You can be on the road by 5:30. Even with the 1 hour time difference to Louisville, you can be down here by 10:30 on any of the given days that we have our weekend drafts, August 23rd through 25th. I'm going to count on you being here, and I'm going to get in touch with you because you'll be here. There will be guys. Some of the guys, as early as you get here from Chicago in the car, there will be guys. The majority of them that will be up at the time that you get here will be guys that didn't go to bed from the night before. So what I'm telling you is, we'll be waiting for you.
Oh, hey, we will. All
right, I'll be there.
Jim, you are the man.
An on-air commitment, Balkman.
On-air commitment.
I'll never fade Jim Tracy. I can tell you that.
He is a target in every single high-stakes fantasy football leagues. You want to make sure you get Jim Tracy on your squad. And, Jim, we're glad to have you on our squad tonight talking fantasy football with you. Thank you so much for spending part of your Friday evening with us. Happy Memorial Day weekend to you. I wish you nothing but the best in 2024. Thanks again, dude. Be good. We'll talk with you again soon.
My pleasure, guys.
That is Jim Tracy, ladies and gentlemen, the 18-time FFPC Dynasty League winner from 2023 alone. Oftentimes I say, he won 18 FFPC Dynasty Leagues, and that's over the course of his career. He won all these leagues in 2023, so he is definitely on the come up. We learned a lot from him tonight, Ferrell. And to that point, because we talked with him so long, We don't have a lot of time to get through emails, so we'll do our best to get through the 3 emails I have centered and focused for us on the show tonight. The first one is Ken in Oklahoma City. How do you guys feel about Blake? Hi, fellas. How do you feel about Blake Corum after the Kyron Williams injury news? This is interesting, Ferrell, because I saw today, I think it was today in The Athletic or ESPN or somebody said that the Rams want Blake Corum to develop a 3-down running back game, which to me suggests that a split with Kyron Williams, not necessarily on, first and second down versus third down, but a split with him where he's taking overall series away from Kyron Williams. This is significant. And if we look at the ADP on these guys, it's crazy, right? Because Kyron Williams ADP is running back 7 at the 207. The next the next running back for the Rams that's being taken is Corum and running back 37, and not until the 9-10. I love Corum's ADP right now.
Yeah, that's going to disappear, and Williams is going to drop, and we will definitely get there. Permar had a question over here, and I think it requires an answer.
Sure.
Who am I planting my flags on? That's for another show. Who am I fading? I do have a fading philosophy, Permar. I wait until our pros versus Joes contest. I find the player that the pros are high on, and I immediately begin to fade that player. I find the players that the Joes are hot on, Joes like you, Permar, and I say, those are the guys that know how to win. That's who I'm getting with. I got some guys I like better than others. I'm not particularly fading anyone this year. I haven't found anybody that necessarily makes me think that they can't contribute.
I think it's interesting because there is a lot of flag planting going on right now in the industry, and I haven't really done that yet. Ferrell, you clearly haven't done that yet either, and I think that's a good thing because
I think, Permar, and I love your spirit that you bring to the show. I think the weakest fantasy players are the ones that are so certain in their flag planting. And
especially in May.
And yes, and especially when they get to Planet Hollywood. And I believe that you should follow, as Jim said tonight, you should follow consistency, but don't die on planting that flag. It's not Iwo Jima, it's the FFPC.
Right. That's the tagline for the FFPC. It's not Iwo Jima, it's the FFPC. No, I think what's interesting here is you say, well, Balky, why are we not planting flags here in May? Well, I think that the reason you draft in January, February, March, April, May, whatever, it's because you can cash in on value late. You don't have to necessarily be planting a flag on some of these players that, Blake Corum, for instance, you don't have to be planting a flag on him in May in round 11. You want to draft him in a bunch of spots? Hey, that's great. He's a double-digit round pick, and you can cash in on value for him. I think that's the reason you draft early. Flag planting, like when we have a lot of the information, when nothing's probably going to change until the start of the season, barring injury, knock on wood, and I do have wood in front of me, so I'll knock on that. That's when you can start flag planting. Flag planting at this point in the season, it can work, and certainly I think that there are players that a lot of the pundits are planting their flags on right now that are going to work out and not work out. I just feel like be fungible. Be as fungible as possible.
Ooh, that's a good word.
Yeah, until we're,
look up some synonyms for that.
Yeah, exactly. I was on thesaurus.com earlier.
Yeah,
that's why
and to that point, I have heard that Tyreek Hill guy's pretty good.
He is. He's not bad.
Come in with a little Captain Obvious there,
The thing with everything that's going on right now, all the information that everybody's going to get is going to hit us in preseason, late August and early September. And then at that point, that's when you literally have to flag plant, because at that point, everybody's going to have the same information. Everybody's going to know everything as much as you do. And that's when you have to make your claim on okay, I like this guy because of this.
And that's also when you can take your game to another level. The fact that they cut up these games and play these exhibition games and play them on the NFL.com, and you can watch them in a quick 30-minute format, and you can see players that have elements of success that may be available on the waiver wire due to injury and things like that. That's when you can really differentiate your season from a lot of other fantasy players that have been busy saying, this is my guy, ride or die, this is my guy. And, I love that mentality, but it can get you in trouble.
It can get you in trouble, especially in May. So, again, be flexible. As Bruce Lee would say, be water or be like water. I can't remember the exact quote, but be like water at this point in drafting season. The Texans running backs is the topic of question for our next emailer, Ron in Danville, Pennsylvania. Where do you stand on the Houston backfield? Thank you, Ron, for the email. We appreciate it. Right now, as I look at it, Joe Mixon, running back 16 at the 411. Dameon Pierce, running back 66 at the 1706. Those are the only two running backs being drafted in Houston right now, Ferrell. How do you feel about that? Because that is a huge, deep, yawning chasm of basically almost 13 rounds between Mixon and Dameon Pierce right now.
I feel that running back coach Danny Barrett, who was my first client in the Canadian Football League 41 years ago, will lead both running backs to fantastic success in fantasy football. But Mixon is my guy.
Mixon is your guy there, and I feel like that is the correct answer. Even when you take in draft capital, I know Dameon Pierce, there's been reports he's really in fantastic shape right now, which, let's face it, 90% of the NFL is in the best shape of their lives right now. I'm with you on Mixon. I think Mixon is the play here.
Sometimes you take a change of scenery. Stepping into a team with a very, very aggressive passing attack and a talented quarterback. And, things just new, fresh, and undiscovered for Mixon. It's very exciting to see what he might do.
We have the final email, Mike in Harrells, North Carolina. He writes, hey, guys, Dan Campbell was talking up Jamison Williams. Are you guys going to talk up Jamison Williams as well? That is Mike in Harrells, North Carolina. We appreciate it. Yeah, Dan Campbell was talking him up. I've seen some people talking about him being a potential massive breakout, a year 3 breakout for Jamison Williams right now. And what's interesting about Whiskey Bill, as some people call him, wide receiver 49 is his current ADP. He is going off the board at the 10:06. Ferrell, do you want to be in business with Jamison Williams at that point in the draft?
I think you do, especially with the players that you have around him on that team. It's a great stacking option for best ball. Balky, who's going a little bit before him and who's going a little bit after him?
I assume you're talking about for wide receivers, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So for wide receivers, as I said, Jamison Williams is going off the board as wide receiver 49 right now. If you look a little bit above him, you're going to see Rome Odunze, Cortland Sutton, and Brian Thomas, a couple of rookies in there. If you look right after him, you're going to see some veterans, Curtis Samuel, Jacoby Myers, and Mike Williams, he now of the New York Jets.
And those are Curtis Samuel's a 65 catch guy, and that's a great season for him. Williams, we know what we like about him, which is best ball, and it's hard to pick when you're going to put him in the lineup. Yeah, so, Whiskeyville it is. Give me a double.
Yeah, give you a double, exactly. Permar is also ordering a double. He says take Williams ahead of Christian Watson too, as well. Jameson Williams over Christian Watson, which I get, and I could see that happening.
Permar, you just damn crazy.
Well, but he's not crazy. He is absolutely not crazy.
Well, yes, he is. But you know what? He loves attention, and he throws. That's what you love. For a guy.
Do you think that's that crazy? I don't think that's crazy. That's not.
Because we've cured Christian Watson tonight. Permar, you weren't here for the early part of the show. Balky diagnosed him. It's got all straight. It's down to 6% correction. The asymmetrical stride by August will be history. It's the Balkman cure.
Yeah, that's the plan. If I was the doctor on him, I would be standing behind it. I am not. I'm just reporting.
And when he's striding right,
when
touchdowns.
When he's striding right, nobody strides better.
There you go. Oh, I like
that. And I'll say this: like if you are a believer in Williams and you want to take him ahead of Watson because you're not a believer in this hamstring thing being totally taken care of, I'm fine with that. I personally am taking Watson ahead of
You're
James.
a flag planter is what you are.
I'm not. I'm what I'm doing is I'm digging the hole. I'm digging the hole for my flag right now, but I have not planted the flag yet. I'm just digging the hole at this point. We dug ourselves a hole tonight, but we're
not getting out of this one.
No, we're pulling out of it right now, Ferrell.
Yeah.
We're pulling out of it right now. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about. With the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, which you can register for at KFFSC.com. Now, right now, there is a league, a KFFSC main event league, featuring a $25,000 grand prize. It's the kickoff division. This is a slow draft, and you can register for it now at KFFSC.com. I will be in this league, so you can compete against me. There's other luminaries in this division as well. It will start as soon as it's full, and this is what you want to do. This is perfect practice, and maybe not even practice. Maybe this is the $25,000 winning team you're drafting when you register at KFFSC.com. But Ferrell, I mean, a ton of stuff going on with the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship right now as well.
Well, and that's a great place to get started. We'd love to have you. So, if you want to play, open an account. We'll get in touch with you and talk about what we have to offer. But it's a great league, and you online, live. Balky, anytime you get in the same room with guys like you and the real Leroy and Two-Packer and Don Erickson and all those guys, the Dizzle, if you can get into that, it's good stuff.
It is good stuff. Check it out, KFFSC.com. Ferrell, once again, appreciate everything you brought to the table tonight. We'll do this again a week from today, man.
See you then, man.
That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. Check out the KFFSC.com. Check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. Again, the 2024 main event online kickoff division. I will be in that league. Plenty of other people in that league. Join it now and compete against me and some of the other former guests of the show, actually, at KFFSC.com. I want to thank Ferrell Elliott. I want to thank Jim Tracy for hopping aboard tonight. Rob, Bryce, of course, each and every one of you in the FFPC as well. Now, we will be back next Friday with 11-time FFPC League champion Drew Jennings. He will hop aboard at 10 p.m. next Friday. In case you missed last night's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network, we had Rotoballer's Brandon Murchison on. He and I cut it up for 2 hours. It was a lot of fun. That 2-hour show is always a lot of fun each and every week. Check that out on any of the FFPC socials as well as the Better Sports Network socials as well in case you missed it. Now, we have an exciting show planned for you this coming Thursday. As you know, the hard way Fantasy Pros Championship Draft will be launching at 8 p.m. Eastern Time this Thursday. That's normally during the second half of the HSFF show on the Better Sports Network. So what we are doing this coming Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, we will pregame this Fantasy Pros hard way draft. We're going to have on some of the guests or some of the drafters in that draft as a guest on the HSFF show. We're going to see if we can get Dave Tripoli, who is a former co-host of this show, Aiden LaCourie, again, another former co-host of this show, guys that will be covering this draft live. We'll get their thoughts, they get their takes on everything that's going to be going on that night. That is a 2-hour pregame show starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, right here on the FFPC YouTube channel, you can watch that hardway draft live. It's going to be a lot of fun. FFPC YouTube, FFPC Twitter, and of course the Better Sports Network and FFPC YouTube as well. It's going to be great. So don't miss that. That is coming up this Thursday. The Fantasy Pros Championship is live. Check that out. I'm commissioning the midnight draft, which is going off in about 40 minutes here. So check that out at myffpc.com. Draft for $1 million tonight. And of course, the FFPC Best Ball and Superflex Best Ball tournaments are live at myffpc.com. Empire Leagues, Dynasty Leagues, and much more. That is all at myffpc.com. Check it out. We'll see you there. And don't forget to join that KFFSC main event kickoff league featuring yours truly. It's going to be a blast. We are in the midst of it, people. It's nothing but fun and drafting from here on out. Thank you so much for watching the show tonight. I'll see you in the draft rooms. Thanks so much.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
One other thing I wanted to point out before I sign off tonight, it is Memorial Day weekend, and I know it's a big weekend of drafting. A lot of drafts are going to be filling up with the Fantasy Football Players Championship, be they the Fantasy Pros Championship, the best ball tournaments, and what have you. But I do think because we get this extra day this weekend to not go to work, to take a day off, to draft, to grill out whatever we're doing, to occupy our minds and entertain ourselves on this Monday. I do think that we should set aside a little bit of time, not a ton of time, just maybe a minute or two, and just remember all the people that gave the ultimate sacrifice to make sure that we could draft fantasy football leagues, the fact that we could grill out on a Monday and not go to work, the people that helped shape this country into what it is. To all those who have served, to all those who are currently serving, and of course to all those who did serve and again pay that ultimate sacrifice to make sure we could live the lives that we are living right now. A wholehearted thank you from the FFPC, the HSFFhour, myself, Ferrell, and everybody. Thank you so much. We certainly appreciate it, and we do remember you this Memorial Day. That said, everybody have an enjoyable weekend. Take some time to think about how we got in this place and the people that made it happen. Thank you so much for watching. We will talk with you again this coming Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on this YouTube channel, and we'll be back live on the HSFF Hour at 10 p.m. Eastern Time this coming Friday. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Happy Memorial Day.